You want to talk Wolfenstein 3D?
I mean, we can. It's the 25th anniversary, right?
Yeah, it was on May 5th, 1992. That's 25 years, yeah.
Cinco de killing Nazis.
Do you remember the first time you played Wolfenstein 3D? What your thoughts were? And, you know, you were a youngin', right? You're not even hitting puberty yet, probably.
Even more so, I remember the first time I saw it in a shareware catalog.
See, I never had any shareware catalog. I was just looking at what came with the CD-ROM or disc.
Being solicited and looking at it and seeing screenshots and being like, holy shit, I need to play this. Because I hadn't really seen anything like it. And I actually played... my first experience with it and its engine was actually... I played a shareware version very soon after of Catacomb 3D, which was a precursor to Wolfenstein. It was the test engine that I believe John Carmack was using. It was Hover Tank 3D, and I think it was
and that was released as an actual game?
Yeah, and Catacomb 3D were like his tests using that engine before Wolfenstein came out. And then Wolfenstein came out and was just, you know, so much more... you know, the graphics were better and there was more meat and potatoes to it. But yeah, that game, you know, I mean, changed the way I looked at what you could do with PC gaming. You know, at that point I was just used
games in general,
yeah,
I'll argue.
Yeah. So it was pretty big. I didn't spend nearly as much time with Wolfenstein as I did Doom later. I don't think I ever played beyond the first shareware chapter of Wolfenstein.
I didn't either when it first came out. Yeah, I had my copy, which I tweeted out, was at CompUSA.
I saw.
Escape from World War II prison, great.
Yeah, yeah.
Fun time.
Yeah.
It was on the shelf, like when you walked up, you looked to the left. There was I forget if it was like a comic book stack, but they have a bunch of shareware titles.
Yeah.
And it was right there, and it was like the MicroStar was the local distributor that got them into CompUSA. And I think it was like $5.99 or so. And that was a good value because remember, when you got shareware, that first episode or first part of the game, that was a full game for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, you can probably tear through it like in 25 minutes if you knew where everything is. But when you're getting a game for the first time like that, first of all, there was no games that cost only $5-6 on computers back then. You're paying still $30 for a game, $40 for a game, and it's revolutionary for a game that cheap to be paying $5-6 to try out a game like that. And Wolfenstein 3D, it solidified the shareware model that would exist for the next 3, 4, or 5 years after that. Like, and this
basically
was a game
one episode for free, two that you buy, you know, to complete the game.
Oh, sure. And then you can buy the other 3, which were the nocturnal missions. Was where when you went after, was it Dr. Faust and the zombies?
Yeah.
But yeah, if you wanted to kill Hitler, you got to call that number or mail in your check.
Yeah.
And then mail you back the game. Because I got one person say, "Oh, I can't believe you paid for shareware. Why didn't you just download that?" In 92, how the fuck am I going to download that? I didn't have internet in my house till about 95.
I remember, there was actually an argument we had once in the comments with someone who was like, no, that's not legal. I'm like, no, they charge you for the diskette and the packaging. That's how they
explicitly said, share this. It's shareware. Give it to other people because it was marketing to them to buy the full version.
Yeah. But they're not going to give you a disc for free.
No, they don't want to lose money.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they want to get something back for the disc.
So you download it for free, or you pay the $5 to skip the hassle of downloading it, and you end up with a disc that you can overwrite later if you want to.
And then you can sell on eBay 25 years later for $70 because everyone wants to, for some reason, now buy Wolfenstein 3D shareware. I don't know, it's weird.
Really?
Some of them go for money, honestly, because I guess if they're localized and weird, you know.
That's crazy.
Well, in general, Wolfenstein 3D, I was looking at some of the software. I guess there's some versions that are harder to find. Like the actual Apogee version, big box version, is hard to find. That goes for a ton of money.
I figured that would probably go for a lot.
Because I don't remember ever seeing that ever.
No.
I would see it re-released or packed in with Doom, you know, a couple years later. But yeah, when you think about ever walking into a CompUSA or Computer City, which was the competitor, and trying to find a version of Wolfenstein 3D that wasn't just shareware, and it's hard to think of that. I do remember seeing like the Mac version coming out a couple years later, and seeing that version.
I don't think I recall ever seeing a PC big box version though.
But why was Wolfenstein 3D so important? It really did two things at a time, which I think scared some people. It made games feel more immersive due to the third-person realism. Which, yes, there were third-person games to that point, mostly dungeon crawlers on computers in the 80s. They weren't done like this with real, voice audio sounds, and it didn't have that depiction of violence and blood and shooting people. And I think that combination made people like, holy shit, this is different.
It ratcheted up the level of maturity that people were not expecting to see. I don't think at that point in video games that you had only seen a few other times before here and there, and mostly played for shock value, like in things like Chiller. Whereas Wolfenstein is primitive as it might be by today's standards, it was actively woven in as part of the storyline.
And if you try to go back and look at some of the original reviews of the game, that's what they say. It's like it's so immersive that, yes, if you can get past what they said was like almost shocking violence at the time, which now makes you go like, hee, shocking violence. But at the time it was. And this is for the ESRB. So games are still, at least console games are still for kids, computer games more for adults. So I doubt many kids would have stumbled upon Wolfenstein 3D. 5-year-olds, even though I bought it for myself, but I was a little bit older. I had my allowance money, only cost $6. They didn't $6 it cost.
$6.
It cost $6, and I bought it at my Comp USA and enjoyed that first episode, and I played it multiple times. But it did establish, it's cliche, you can go watch certain gaming historians' video about the how important Wolfenstein 3D was, but it basically established everything we know about first-person shooters: multiple weapons, health packs, secrets, the structure of room by or level by level. These were things that you took for granted before that this helped solidify. And yes, you got to kill Nazis and you got to kill Robo Hitler if you bought into the episode
with four chain guns or something like that.
But what was also important was the fact that the game was so easily moddable that I remember within a couple years or a year later, you had all these other versions of Doom on shareware. There was a version where you had TIE fighters flying around. You had to shoot. You know what I mean? You probably remember that one. It was so easy just to map your own graphics to the characters and to the walls and put in your own sounds. It was almost like probably how easy it is for app games you produce, where you buy the shell and you just plug in your own elements. But that was one of the first games that you could do that. And then Doom built upon that. But Wolfenstein was really, the first game to make that easy to do. With what were they called? At least on Doom.
Doom, they were WAD files.
WAD files. I'm not sure what they were on Wolfenstein, what they were called.
Yeah, I can't recall. Might have been the same, but I don't think so.
But then, of course, it spawned the glut of first-person shooters. Rise of the Triad was based on a more advanced engine, Wolfenstein engine. They licensed it out for games like Blake Stone, which I remember I had the share version of that, where every time you shot the guy's arm fell off. Which I thought
Rise of the Triad was after Doom, actually. I think that was on a slightly more advanced engine than that, even.
But they all go back to the Wolfenstein engine, though. Doom was built upon it. And then you had the game with the ninja. I forget that had. Then you have
Shadow Warrior spawned from Duke Nukem. You had the Blood games. You had
oh, that's right, the Blood games.
The first Blood was really good, actually. But you had Hexen. You had Heretic.
Heretic. I think I played Heretic.
Heretic's the first one. Hexen was the second one with like the hub world.
So think about before Wolfenstein and then Doom a year later, in '93. You have a whole new genre of game for the most part that erupts and then pretty much dominates the next decade, going into then of course Half-Life in the late 90s. And now we look at first-person shooters, they're like the biggest video game genre, and the genre is only 25 years old. So it's sort of an amazing mini story to me, Wolfenstein, how imagine games before first-person shooters and afterwards. There really hasn't been that big of a switch, I think, in gaming since then.
No. It also makes me sad, though, because with the rise of it, I remember playing, PC games heavily at the time. It seemed to directly correlate to the death of the PC adventure game as well.
Oh, sure. It didn't help. It absolutely didn't.
I mean, it's not the only cause, but, as soon as stuff like Doom and Wolfenstein came out, everyone's suddenly focusing on that. And I think Doom more than Wolfenstein was kind of the big one that pushed everyone into making first-person shooters, and suddenly, LucasArts games aren't selling anymore, and no one cares. Yeah, Sierra games.
Oh, I would say yes, but at the same time, having Doom on the PC opened up so many new gamers to a new platform that weren't there before.
Sure.
People were getting computers in the mid-90s already, but something like having, quote-unquote, a killer app like Doom on it that, the console version is not as good.
No.
And in Wolfenstein, certainly, well, for Wolfenstein, you can make an argument, but not for Doom. The PC version, was great and still good.
Yeah.
Very important. Both of those games, obviously. Both from good old id Software. Still have my sweatshirt somewhere. So raise a glass for Wolfenstein 3D, and we'll probably do the same next year for good old Doom. Raise your water. Ian's got his Nestle water, which is probably the worst bottled water out there, but that's okay. I still love you, Ian. What was your favorite memory of Wolfenstein? You have one particular or no?
Just playing it for the first time, after honestly staring at these screenshots in the magazine.
You see the dead guard in front of you?
Yeah, just playing it for the first time was honestly my favorite memory, because I don't know. It was very neat to see that.
Mein Leben!
Yeah, actually, yeah, the voice samples as well.
Hot.